term environmental justice, I think of people closer to home in Southwest Virginia, of folks that are impacted by environmental justice but don't know it. And I think of folks with the Mountain Valley Pipeline, of they just happen to live where they live and they are who they are, and a pipeline came through their backyard.
And greetings, everyone, and welcome to Buzz for Good, where we talk all things nonprofit, the people they serve, and the good they do. And on today's show, I am buzzing about POWHR, both POWHR and POWHR. You see, whenever nonprofits have to go up against big for-profit companies, it's often like David versus Goliath, but with David lacking any stones for his sling. But recently, a Southwest Virginia environmental nonprofit used its power to successfully stymie, at least for now, construction of a massive 25-acre, 136,900 horsepower compressor station that Mountain Valley Pipeline wanted to build in a rural section of Montgomery County. The POWHR I'm talking about is the name of the nonprofit, Protect Our Water, Heritage, and Rights, POWHR, aka POWHR. And today I will chat with POWHR community organizer Crystal Mello, who prefers to describe herself as the local cleaning lady and a nanna, and double Hokie Seferina Olivo, who is POWHR's community science manager. We'll talk about POWHR's fight against Mountain Valley Pipeline and its work to establish environmental justice for our region. My name is Michael Hemphill. I'm the creator and host of the TV show Buzz that airs on public television, where we feature the great work of nonprofits and provide them with pro bono marketing resources courtesy of our good friends at the American Advertising Federation of Roanoke. You can find out more about my work on my website, buzzforgood.com. That's buzz, B-U-Z-Z, 4, good.com. And social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and TikTok, all at Buzz for Good. And before I get to my conversation with the powerful folks at POWHR, I want to share a quick update about some of the other nonprofits I'm working with right now. This past week, we actually started production on 5 new episodes of our TV show. One features Calfee Community and Cultural Center in Pulaski, Virginia. Now, founded in 1894, the Calfee Training School educated thousands of black children during the days of segregation. And after its closing in 1966, Calfee served a variety of purposes until its abandonment in the early 2000s. But in 2017, a group of citizens began work rehabilitating the 15,000 square foot building into the multi-purpose Calfee Center, with childcare, community kitchen, history museum, digital learning lab, outdoor recreational space, and more. We also began filming Spikenard Honeybee Sanctuary in Floyd County for an episode celebrating the environmental organization's 20th anniversary. In partnership with Roanoke Valley Television, we met up with the nonprofit Renovation Alliance, which provides critical home repair for low-income families in the Roanoke Valley. And in this episode, Renovation Alliance is helping the least of these ministry transform an old home in Roanoke into affordable housing for people transitioning out of homelessness. And over in Blacksburg, we got to work on an episode highlighting Virginia Tech marketing students who spent the spring semester providing advertising assets for 2 nonprofits in our region. And lastly, working with a filmmaker from Iran, I started work on an episode starring the nonprofit She Leads Tomorrow, which provides online education and college access for women in Afghanistan who are barred from the country's educational system. So, an African-American historical site, a honeybee sanctuary, a home repair organization, Virginia Tech students living out the school motto, Ut Prosim, that I may serve, and a resource providing help and hope to Afghan women. As I like to say, this is what I love about nonprofits. They literally do everything. So again, you can stay connected with all of that through my website, Buzz for Good, and social media channels on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Now to today's show. The Mountain Valley Pipeline was dead in the water thanks to the nonprofit POWHR until 2022, when Congress and the Biden administration negotiated a backroom deal to short circuit the regulatory process and expedite pipeline construction. Once the pipeline opened in 2023, Mountain Valley Pipeline revealed plans to construct a massive 25-acre compressor station in the rural Montgomery County community of Elliston that would pump more gas more quickly through the pipeline. The powers behind the compressor station, including some members of Montgomery County government, seemed insurmountable and the project a done deal. But they overlooked the people power behind POWHR, protect our water, heritage, and rights. And here's my conversation with POWHR's Crystal Mello and Seferina Olivo. Wow, we last talked, I forget, Crystal, when was it? 2024, 2023? Long time
Maybe.
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. About the Mountain Valley Pipeline, which is kind of how POWHR got into existence. And we'll kind of come back around to that in a second. But what's bringing us back together today is that out of the Mountain Valley Pipeline, there's been this proposed compressor station for the community of Elliston, Virginia, and Montgomery County, a 136,900 horsepower station that would basically pump natural gas more quickly through the pipeline to get access to other parts of the state. And against all odds, y'all actually were successful in blocking, at least temporarily, this project from moving forward. Congratulations, yes. First of all, that's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. So kind of describe just what recently happened that kind of put this project on hold. Crystal.
Well, what is putting it on hold right now, and there was a lot of work leading up to that, but the Montgomery County Board of Supervisors did sign off on a site suitability in October of 2025. And then in December of 2025, they entered a letter of a resolution of opposition to this project to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, FERC. And so now DEQ is telling them you cannot sign off on site suitability and also oppose this project. And my communications with the administrator, Angie Hill, in Montgomery County is just basically saying that this is preemptive, it doesn't matter, and then apparently it matters because DEQ has pulled the permit and MVP has to start from the beginning on their air pollution permit.
Wow. Right. So DEQ, just for those who are listening and don't know, that's the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality, and they have to issue an air permit for this project to move forward, basically acknowledging, yeah, this project is going to create some air pollution, but it's not going to be that bad for the people who live around it. Is that kind of one way of looking at it?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And Seferina has done some great work in proving that it will be a problem.
Yeah, so Seferina, share a little bit about your background. You graduated recently from Virginia Tech.
So I'm what they call it a double Hokie, which just means you go to Virginia Tech twice. But yeah, I did my undergrad at Tech for environmental resource management, and then did a master's in water resources engineering, and so have a background in environmental data analytics. And so we're talking about the minor new source review air permit, and we can talk about the air monitors that are in Elliston. And in Eastmont, but there's three air monitors that have been capturing the air quality in Eastmont, and they show that the air is not too great. So let me pull up some information on that.
Those air monitors were put up years ago when we did the Virginia Tech Environmental Household Study, and so three air monitors were sponsored to start just seeing what that area is already looking like.
Okay.
So the air monitors are purple air monitors, which capture particulate matter that's 2.5 microns or more, and so PM 2.5 is the shorthand for it. And those values are converted into the EPA's air quality index, or AQI, and those values tell you if the air is safe for folks, if it's good, moderate, if it's unhealthy, or if it gets up to hazardous. And so those three air monitors that are in Elliston currently, they captured that the air is around from 53.1 to 66.5 between those three monitors, that they exceed the threshold for being unhealthy for sensitive groups
Mm.
out of a year. So more than half of the year, the air is unhealthy for folks that are sensitive to air pollution, like children or the elderly, folks with respiratory or cardiovascular health conditions. And so one of the air monitors is actually at the closest residence to where the compressor station is proposed to be placed. And so at that house specifically, it's 54.1% of days within the year is over the unhealthy threshold for anybody, regardless of if you're in a sensitive group. And so I think that the DEQ air permits, now that it's halted, but when it was in place, it taking into account the cumulative effects from the air pollution that's already existing in Elliston, from I-81, from 460, from Norfolk and Southern, the different industrial pollution that exists there. So yeah.
Wow. And so and obviously DEQ was concerned about, or the concern is that, this compressor station was just going to exacerbate all those numbers.
Yeah, I think that they were taking into account the cumulative impacts, or at least I hope that they were. But yeah, I think that their main concern was that legal contradiction, and that is what halted the air permit
Yeah.
with the county's administrative forms. And so,
Yeah,
yeah.
basically they wanted the county to come out one way or the other to say we support this or we don't support this. And the county was kind of sending mixed messages. And DEQ said, well, if that's, we'd like to begin with local control. I think the county sounded like they were trying to get out from having to take a stand on this.
Yeah, their response was that it was that FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, is the regulatory commission for this project, and yeah, we're trying to sort of back out away from it, but the DEQ can't process an air permit without their sign off, and so yeah,
Right.
the ball is in their court.
Yeah, so local control, local government does have a say so. That's kind of nice to hear these days, um, whether they want it or not. Well, all right. So real quickly, and like I said, we're going to get big picture here in a second. But where do these things stand now? So if the county were to come back and say, okay, we are in favor of it, then what happens? They'll have to start the whole process all over again, Mountain Valley Pipeline.
Yeah, for the DEQ air permit, the DEQ director Rollban sent a letter to NDP at mid-June, and said that if they resolved that legal discrepancy, that they could resubmit starting completely from the beginning. And so it would restart the application process. And when the application was halted, they were on their fifth deficiency letter. And so the timeline would essentially start over, and they had a goal of it being done actually within the next couple of days, within July, I think it was 12th.
Yeah.
And so it would completely start over, and the timeline would shift.
Wow. Well, first of all, again, congratulations, because these days you don't hear about too many successful community organizing groups who are able to stop any kind of major industrial project, regardless of where it is in the country, and its scope and size. So that's incredible. It truly is incredible. And once again, joined here on Buzz for Good by Crystal Mello, community organizer with Protect Our Water, Heritage, and Rights, also known as POWHR, and Seferina Olivo, who's a community science manager for POWHR. Crystal, I just introduced you as community organizer, but when you introduced yourself like out there in the world, I mean, you were not born into this work. This, you kind of came to this very organically. So, I mean, how do you tell your life story when it comes to getting involved with power?
Well, I usually just say I'm the local cleaning lady, and mom and nana. Um, yeah,
Were
definitely.
you?
It feels weird hearing community organizer because it like like to get paid to do something that you do find joy in sometimes feels guilty because there's so many people doing great work and it's like how come they're not getting paid or but I do appreciate still cleaning houses also because it's grounding and it's central to me and it also keeps me in touch with people who like in this community that have shaped me in some form or fashion.
Yeah.
So
Well, I hear what you're saying about, being paid, but I mean, that is how we kind of recognize good work in our country is by, who we're willing to pay to do it. And so I would view that as an accomplishment on your part, the fact that, you're obviously very good at it and skilled and successful, that it deserves compensation so that you can keep doing this great work, right?
yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's true.
well,
Because I think
how did you get involved with Power to begin with, and why?
well, just like with fighting the pipeline and had started at a different end of fighting the pipeline. But then when they had the stop work order and they weren't allowed to work for a while, it was just kind of like, what do I do now? And Dr. Satterwhite, Emily Satterwhite, who's also an author on the EJ study, and Russell Chisholm, who's our
Real
managing
quick,
director.
Emily Satterwhite, Virginia Tech Appalachian Studies professor,
Yes.
heavily involved in all this work, right? And you say
Yep.
EJ study, the environmental justice study.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
And then Russell Chisholm, introduce him
Um,
real quick.
it- our managing director at POWHR,
Yeah.
who began early on without a paid position, also in the early meetings in churches and such. So we there was a fellowship through the Equation campaign, and they encouraged me to apply for it, and I did get it, and so that kind of gave some money for me to for POWHR, like they were the like fiscal sponsor and so I got to
Mhm.
do contract work with POWHR and then it just kind of rolled over once that fellowship was over. I was offered like a part-time position and now it's kind of full-time but not fully full-time but it's enough to like where I have insurance now and stuff like that, so that's been nice.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. What was it about Mountain Valley Pipeline Project that so animated you to do something? Because I mean, a lot of people like me, I live within half a mile of the pipeline, and yeah, I was upset about it, but by that point, I've gone through a few of these industrial projects that seemed to inevitably happen that I was weary. And so it's like, okay, Crystal's willing to fight for it. I'm gonna let her fight for it. And I've fought my fights and they were not successful and I'm tired.
Yeah,
But you were like, no, to heck with it. I'm gonna do something.
I like started with what Seferina now manages is the Mountain Valley Watch program, and that was just like observing. And I think that's what drew me in so much was just seeing a lot of horrible work sites and practices, and then getting the scope of it, and then learning to talk to like landowners and finding out because people are always saying, well, they got money, they can, about speaking out, and people don't understand in a lot of those contracts, they're not allowed to speak out
Hmm.
once they take that check because they knew it was going to be taken anyway, so why not take the money, which I think a lot of us probably would go ahead and do. But in those contracts, it's also they can't speak out against it, which so not only are they taking their property for private gain, but they've taken their like First Amendment. Just so many practices that I learned about. I'm like, this is all just crooked.
Yeah.
And I think that fueled me.
Yeah.
Even when they arrested people for tree sitting, who um, the tree sitters never got a bond, and then the local insurrectionist who lived like as the crow flies a couple blocks from there was out the next morning,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just things like that infuriate me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's understandable why you would want to attack the Capitol building and try to stop a presidential election. So that's easily forgivable. But let's not go hop up in a tree to try to stop a pipeline project that's just going to decimate the environment. That's intolerable.
Yeah, and even if you don't agree with that, it's still nonviolent
Yeah.
resistance.
Hmm.
And to be given it's an inconvenience for the people who have to get them down, totally, you know, but nobody was threatened with bats or mace or like it's
Yeah.
just, it was an inconvenience.
Yeah. Yeah. Seferina Olivo, Community Science Manager for POWHR. What drew you to this work? Because I mean, there are many different paths that you, as having a double Hokie, as you say, 2 degrees in environmental engineering and whatnot, you could have gone a variety of directions. What made you go this direction? It was the money, right?
For sure. I mean, how could you not? No, yeah, I appreciate that question. I think that there's like a natural inclination for engineers certainly to go into either government or contracted, industrial work. I'm from Washington County and was raised by folks that were, impacted by the legacy of coal and definitely grew up
Mm.
around the decline of coal within Southwest Virginia and saw a lot of landowners being taken advantage of coal. Definitely, using industrial means to take advantage of folks that didn't have the education, the know-how to protect themselves. And so I got introduced to POWHR actually through the environmental justice study in 2022 with Dr. Satterwhite, and that's where I met Crystal, and was engaged more with the Mountain Valley Pipeline work and with POWHR. And I think that the way I see myself within the work and within this battle for the environment is that there is a foundation of injustice that I think these industries work off of. And I think it's based on that landowners won't have the education or won't have the knowledge to be able to translate technical engineering documents, to have the knowledge of what will be happening to their land. I think that they bank on folks not being able to speak their language. That was something that I really saw within the Mountain Valley Pipeline fight, and I think that I try to serve folks as best I can with my technical knowledge, with that engineering background, with a knowledge and a training in environmental management to be able to manage the Mountain Valley Watch program well. So folks have the education of this is why water monitoring matters, and this is what impacts to water will be, and the same with air of like this is why air monitoring is necessary, and this is what the impacts to air will be. And so I think that yeah, trying to bridge that educational gap is where I see the need for someone that is a double Hokie to be that explainer, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not just education though. It's just sometimes it's just exhaustion or will, financial resources to put up any kind of fight.
Yeah.
People, I think, I would think that a lot of the homeowners and communities impacted by the Mountain Valley Pipeline know the environmental and health damage that is going to cause, but they just feel powerless in the face of, these major corporations and, quite frankly, government officials who oftentimes are, backing the corporations.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I
Once,
appreciate Seferina has helped me so much, and just like the regular person organizing, like I can say something is messed up and Seferina will be like, what Crystal means is that this ratio to this. And so
yeah,
she's helped me so much, that I appreciate her. And I like we're like she said it before, the dream team, but it does feel so good working with Seferina and stopping where we're at right now anyway.
well, that's a great point, Crystal, because when it comes to, and here I am speaking, this show is all about the work that nonprofit organizations do, and nonprofits are most successful when they can appeal not only to the heart but also the head. And what you just said, you have no problems stirring up someone's heart when it comes to an issue, but you've got to then also be able to speak the language and talk about the numbers and the facts and the science in order to be really successful with the decision makers. And that sounds like what you're saying. That's where Seferina comes in. Like you could say, this is really bad, but Seferina's going to explain why it is bad.
Yeah, very much so.
Well, we need to make t-shirts that say the head and the heart.
That's
Yeah.
nice. That's nice.
Yeah.
I want a cut of that, but of course I'll then donate it right back to Power. So,
Yeah.
so.
There we go. There we go. Yeah, I think that yeah, I think that's really true. I this was a conversation I had with a landowner actually recently. It reminds me of it because it's the phrase of like you have to play their game. Like you have to this is in the regulatory process you have to say the words that will mean something to them. And I think you have to say it in ways that will prove actionable to them. And I think that that definitely, yeah, there is some like some language like code switching you have to do.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's something that I feel like happens a lot as Appalachians is being able to have to code switch to be able to be taken seriously. And I think that that's true in these industrial projects as well is these landowners that are being taken, advantage of and are being harmed and their voice is deemed as lesser, maybe just because like, they're not saying it in a way that an industrial party is going to care. Yeah.
Well, even looking at what DEQ has just ruled, it wasn't the facts of the matter or the case. It wasn't just how harmful this compressor station could be for the people who live around it. It was the fact that there was some like technical legalese thing that Montgomery County Board of Supervisors had not checked in order for this process to move forward. I mean, that's great, but nevertheless, there wasn't appeals, to the heart. It was just kind of a bureaucratic process that hadn't been followed. So anyway, that's not really heart nor head. That's some other body part, I guess, that deals with the legalese. Anyway,
But
uh,
would have just went on though, and probably would have gotten their permit this month if like Jess Sims didn't come all the way from Richmond for our big community meeting and was like, hey, wait a minute, because they told us for a long time at these little meetings and everything that this is a federal project and there's nothing they can do. So yeah, like having other groups, environmental groups to come in and help us
mhm.
is key too. Like I guess it's like the POWHR Coalition, but um like industry has so much money, but like investing in local small grassroots um nonprofits like POWHR, it gives us the ability to at least have a little bit of a fighting ground,
Mhm.
or have some stature or a seat at the table, or because we don't have $500 to, but
Exactly.
we'll grow, 2,500 pounds of food to feed the locals. But,
Mhm. Yeah.
cash is not what we have.
hmm hmm Well, once again, joined here on Buzz for Good by Crystal Mello, community organizer for POWHR, POWHR, Protect Our Water Heritage and Rights, along with Seferina Olivo, community science manager for POWHR. Okay, so POWHR got its start, and I'm going to let y'all explain what POWHR is, but POWHR seemed to have got its start with the announcement 10 years plus ago that this massive 330-mile long pipeline was going to be built from West Virginia through our part of Virginia and into North Carolina. Uh,
That's the MVP Southgate extension.
Extensive, yeah. So we're not in
This,
North Carolina yet. We're still just it just ends in Virginia.
yep, it ends in Chatham, but it's 303, not 30.
303. Thank you. Yeah, you know the numbers by now. You've been living with it for a long time. Yeah, but the Mountain Valley Pipeline, which y'all had successfully kind of stopped in its tracks until 2024. Is that when uh, the compromise basically bill that the Senate worked out to pass the budget that and Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia was the tie-breaking vote. That was only if all the federal regulations would be essentially removed so that the pipeline could continue forward.
I think it was 23,
23.
and it
Okay.
was completed in June of 24.
Okay. Right. And no sooner had the kind of the dust settled on that is when, at least from an outsider's perspective, I know that there was talk of it already, but then these compressor stations started being floated. So explain to a listening public what exactly is a compressor station along the pipeline.
Uh, Seferina, you want to give the, okay.
I gotcha. Yeah, so the Mountain Valley Pipeline went into service in June 2024. It currently is operated and was constructed with three compressor stations in West Virginia, the Bradshaw, the Harris, and the Stallworth compressor stations, which are cutely named after Pittsburgh Steelers quarterbacks. Anyway,
Or player.
um,
Yeah.
players. There we
Yeah.
go. And so the pipeline is currently being operated through these compressor stations. A compressor station, just very simply, what a compressor station does is it pressurizes the gas to be able to shoot through the pipe to the next compressor station. It's as the name suggests.
Mhm.
It's been the mainline has been in operation since 2024, just with those existing three compressor stations in West Virginia. The expansion project that we've been mentioning would add a compressor station to Elliston, Virginia, and would further increase the capacity of the main line by 30%, or I believe it's 600,000 decatherms per day of additional capacity. And so we had mentioned the MVP Southgate extension, which would extend the main line from Chatham, Virginia into North Carolina, which is which is a long way for if the compressor station is defeated, and when the compressor station is defeated, for from West Virginia to North Carolina for one compressor station to push that length. And so that's where we see ourselves in the landscape for the existing compressor stations for the mainline system.
Yeah. What is the purpose for all this gas? Why is it all of a sudden, seemingly such a critical need for Montgomery County or for the surrounding area?
Data centers.
Data centers.
Yeah, we knew that this project was gonna start because Russell likes to listen to the EQT investor meetings. I don't know if he likes to, but he does. And that's where
EQT, real quick, is the owner company of the Mountain Valley Pipeline.
along with NextEra, who wants to have a merger with Dominion. But EQT NextEra is the next biggest holder in that, I believe. Okay. But so listening to EQT, they announced this Swan compressor station, and then made a cute slide about how this gas will help with gas flow fuel for data centers. And so that was very helpful. but they've continued now to put out more slides and calling Appalachia as the emerging data center hub. So we know
Well, that
that
sounds
this,
exciting.
it's so exciting.
Very
Um,
promising.
so
Why would we want
promising.
to fight that?
Yeah. In the middle of a drought. So a pretty big drought, a statewide drought.
Real quick,
Um,
what does that have to do with data centers?
because of their consumption of water. You
Mm,
know, they're
cool.
cooled, they have to cool down and they can spin it any way they want, but it's needed. And whether it's closed loop, which we have friends who have problems with closed loops too, and the heat that comes off these data centers, like it's a whole nother ball game bringing that to our community. But Roanoke Gas does have a tap in Elliston and also Franklin County that taps off of the Mountain Valley Pipeline main line. And just in the news the other day, there's talk about this data center and, possible data centers coming to Franklin County, which is also near that Roanoke gas tap. So, but there was a compressor station slated for our area, the Eastmont, Elliston, Roanoke County line in the original application. They took that compressor station out. That compressor station was 31,000 horsepower. They pulled it out. They totally knew they were going to need it, but they pulled it out of the application. Excuse me. Now they're back with 136,000 horsepower data center. We wonder, there's a thing called segmentation that they're not allowed to do. That's totally what they're doing. They knew they were going to need this compressor station in Elliston to push this gas over Poor Mountain to run fully. They knew they were going to do the MVP Southgate extension, which they need more compression to get gas to this MVP Southgate extension. So that's our goal now, is to look more into that and find out more about segmentation.
Yeah. Well, and maybe Sefrina, you can answer this. When you say 136,900 horsepower, what does that look like? What does that sound like for someone who, I mean, it sounds like a big number, but what does that mean like facility wise? And
Yeah, so I I wish that I had talked to, we can maybe cut this out. Our colleague Joshua Vanna with Artivism Virginia was a part of the Buckingham compressor station fight, and he does a great explanation of the difference in horsepower between fights of compressor stations that have been canceled versus this one. But anyway, a compressor station that's as big in horsepower as this one compressor station would be is driving a lot of a high amount of exhaust out of the compressor station as it's compressing gas and pressurizing it to go through the pipe. It's
how big is this facility? Are we talking like,
Yeah, so the compressor station by acreage, I believe, is 25 acres, and so which
wow.
is wild and huge for a non-industrial rural area in Montgomery County, Virginia. And so we haven't been able to find by horsepower a larger compressor station on the East Coast. And so
Hmm.
I think it's wild that the largest compressor station by horsepower would be in a rural area for the East Coast. And so that would bring, of course, high volumes of air pollution, but also noise pollution. These compressor stations are incredibly noisy as they're pressurizing gas. There's these instances called blowdowns where they're emergency, I say in quotes, because they're scheduled once a month, 12 times a year. I don't know how you can schedule an emergency, but it seems like you can. There are blowdowns where the noise volumes can reach as high as being close proximity to a jet engine. They exceed the county's noise ordinances. They are, I believe, 120 decibels, and they're not regulated because they're deemed as emergencies, and so incredibly noisy, incredibly harming to health, not only human but also wildlife health. And so yeah, there's many risks and many damages that come with a compressor station that large.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, all the jobs that are going to come with this compressor station.
Yeah, zero.
Zero.
Yeah. Zero. There's compressor stations are incredibly dangerous, and so they're operated remotely, and so they can boast that there are jobs that are created maybe through construction. They can say that there are jobs maybe, through the compressor station, but they won't be local. They'll be remote. They won't even live maybe in not whatnot in Montgomery County. So yeah, there's no local benefit, however, which way they spin it.
Yeah. All right. So there are no jobs once the compressor station were to open. There's a lot of noise. There's a lot of, or there's, some amount of air pollution. Uh, and none of the gas flowing through that is actually going to be going to Eastern Montgomery County or Montgomery County at large. What is the
Or
benefit
Shawsville,
or
since
Shawsville?
yeah, people in Shawsville think they're going to now get connected to the
Yeah,
grid.
Shawsville is another community about 5 miles away from this. So what is the benefit to the local community or even Montgomery County for this compressor station?
Tax revenue would probably be the only, benefit from Montgomery County, and
Yeah.
I don't even think it'll be that much.
Tax revenue
Just
just from the plant facility itself, the machine and
the,
tool tax or whatever that would be, property tax.
yeah, yep, yep. I was looking for the revenue projections fiscal year, which they do receive money from the pipeline, but they're receiving a lot more. I mean, a lot less from the pipeline now, and Montgomery County had to make some adjustments because I think it's lazy economics, honestly. Data centers are lazy economics, like this tax benefits that these towns are getting in our town, I mean, in over 20 years, we've lost two banks, we lost a pharmacy forever, we lost a car wash, laundromat, restaurants. I mean, this town is fizzling away. Nobody's fighting to bring jobs or any kind of economic growth. It's like, oh, let's just put a data center or a compressor station, and at least we'll get a little money out of that. And Flat Hat Farms, the sign is still leaning up against a fence because I guess it doesn't reach some kind of code. And they probably do provide jobs locally
Mhm.
and whatnot. And so this year, Montgomery County received $500,000 from the pipeline.
And
So
what was that in the form of? Just a thank you, or was it
I
actually tax assessments?
I think it's tax assessments. Yeah.
All right.
Um, but I mean, that's that's not the answer, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Hmm. Again, joined here on Buzz for Good by Crystal Mello, community organizer with POWHR, the Protect Our Water Heritage and Rights, along with Seferina Olivo, community science manager for POWHR. You have successfully, for now, paused. We'll say paused. We might like to say stopped, but paused this project for an MVP Swan compressor station in the community of Elliston in Montgomery County. What's next for POWHR? Like, are there other projects that POWHR is actively working on to protect our water heritage and rights?
Well, Seferina and we started an environmental justice working group, which has led us to a lot of neat opportunities.
Mhm.
We got to present to the Virginia Council on Environmental Justice at the end of April. One of our asks, the study that we talked about earlier, presented that to them. One of our asks from them was to come and do a visit with folks here, a site visit. They did do that. Um,
And what is this organization again that you presented to?
the Virginia Council on Environmental Justice, the members are appointed through the governor.
Hmm.
There's a mixture. Apparently, there's an MVP consultant on this board, but there's also some people. I mean, I'm not saying that this consultant doesn't care about environmental justice issues, but there are people that's their work in life is environmental justice issues. But you know, we've been able to meet with Lieutenant Governor Hashmi. So the two council members came and visited with us, spent a little over 2 hours. We were able to take them to the community garden. We were able to take them to the site and over to the fire department, which is in the blast zone. Um, and from that visit, they noticed quite a few issues and are hopefully drafting a letter to the governor on our behalf about their concerns. We've also now been asked to be panelists on the Interfaith Power and Light EJ retreat, which is at the end of the month. So it's just taken us to a lot of places that for me personally, I didn't expect, but just holding on and enjoying the ride and learning and meeting people and we've been asked to help host a mini conference, EJ mini conference in Southwest Virginia, which that feels exciting because I don't think that's a thing here. And just like what the future holds in environmental justice fight in Southwest Virginia.
Yeah, Seferina, what is environmental justice? And this was a term that I'd never heard of 5 years ago, 10 years ago. What does environmental justice mean to you?
It wasn't something that I had heard of until, my undergrad at Tech. And the term environmental justice, I think of people closer to home in Southwest Virginia, of folks that are impacted by environmental justice but don't know it. Environmental justice is you're in an area where, based on your income, based on who you are as a person, your race, your ethnicity, your background, you're more likely to be impacted by environmental harm. And so it's usually folks that, are people of color, folks that aren't as educated, folks that are low income, that because of the scarcity of resources and because of prejudices that exist in our systems are more likely to be harmed by environmental pollution. And so, yeah, when I think of what it means to me, I think of folks that are in Southwest Virginia that are impacted by coal, and that's just me personally. Of folks that have to change their water filter once a week because there's so much coal dust and slurry in their water systems, and that's not because of anything that they've done. It's just because they live where they live and they are who they are. And it's things that are impacting you that you don't have control over, and it just happens to you because of time and place and the injustices of our system. And I think of folks with the Mountain Valley Pipeline, of they just happen to live where they live and they are who they are, and a pipeline came through their backyard. And so that's what I think of. And I think that there are better ways to say that, but I think that environmental justice impacts folks that don't even know it. So
Beautiful. Can environmental justice coexist with industrial development?
it's a great question.
I'll have to use that for a check-in.
Yeah. Um, I think that it can, and this is me speaking personally. I
Mhm.
think it can. I think that environmental justice exists because that there are loopholes within our system where it's cheaper and easier to fit a pipeline through an area that won't have the resources to fight back. And I think that there are ways to construct these industrial systems that aren't as harmful. I do think that we don't need to be expanding fossil fuel in the wake of climate change, but I do think that there are ways to reduce harm within these fossil fuel systems. And so I guess, yeah, the environmental justice and these industrial systems could coexist, but I think they usually don't, and I think that's because of the the loopholes and the need for things to go as quickly as possible, as cheaply as possible, and that is always at the risk and harm of someone that is it's just who they are, you know?
Yeah, the money drives the divide between the two. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's certainly a whole lot cheaper to find a rural plot of ground, rather than something that's
Yeah,
already been
then
developed.
yeah, then a
Yeah.
nice suburb. Yeah. Yeah. For folks that are interested in learning more, you can visit POWHR.org, POWHR.org. There is a page directed towards this project MVP Boost, but you can also donate towards folks that are trying to protect their community. We currently have a fundraiser open for community monitoring that goes towards water monitoring, air monitoring, and noise pollution monitoring to help protect folks that would be most impacted by this proposed compressor station. So you can go to the donate page at POWHR.org. For folks that are, this project is halted for the DEQ. The air permit's halted as decreed by the director roll band at the DEQ, but it's still active at the Board of Supervisors and at the FERC, the federal level. The next Montgomery County Board of Supervisors meeting is July 13th at 7:15. Folks that are what's the word?
Inspired,
You, yeah, folks that are
upset.
inspired to attend or submit a comment to their board of supervisors, or to yeah, to raise issues that we've talked about here. You can attend that meeting or submit a comment online to your board of supervisor and say that this area is not a suitable place to construct or operate a compressor station, and that there's no local benefit to Elliston, Virginia. That meeting is July 13th at 7:15.
And to hold the line on the opposition resolution.
What I find so tragic in the whole conversation is that it seemed as though 5 years ago we were really close to at least kind of getting within sniffing distance of having kind of a net zero uh, way of life in terms of energy consumption. That we were getting closer to, being able to rely just on more sustainable types of energy, and also through decreasing the amount of energy that we needed. And then these damn data centers came along, and the energy just suckers that they are, requiring more energy sources. Very frustrating. And the payoff, unfortunately, is kind of like, what's the benefit of all these AI data centers, or what's the benefit to Elliston of this compressor station? What's going to be the benefit of AI and data centers for the civilization at large? And I have some, I mean, it's kind of nice to be able to do some chat GPTing when I want to go on a trip to figure out like, well, where are the places to go. But at the same time, when I, have friends who are losing jobs in the marketing world because now their jobs are being done solely by AI, that's going to be that's a problem again.
I think
Anyway.
it's a problem. We're having those talks at Power on and assessing like how we use AI, if we're going to use AI, having conversations with other partners, like what is your AI policy?
Mhm.
Making flyers still seems like something that we can do. We don't need AI for stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, and I just want to say like there's about 4 trailer parks around where this compressor station is, and I promise you they're not the ones sucking up all the energy. I also
Mhm.
live in a mobile home. We use very little energy here. We have a window unit. It's not the people in the lower area that are sucking up all the data and doing
Right.
all the AIing and all that stuff. Again, it's folks much higher up making all these decisions and
Mhm.
then claiming like we need
Yeah.
to step back on energy, like, and use a paper straw or whatever, or shame you for not recycling when it's way above us.
Yeah.
There
Right.
needs to be bigger.
Right. Well, that's the whole, my perspective, that's the whole reason for government is, you're not going to be able to do so many things that need to be done to improve our environment or improve our way of life on an individual level. You're not going to be able to recycle your way out of uh, microplastics, in the environment. You've got to have government banning all plastics.
Yes.
Now, that's not going to,
Yes.
yeah, I mean, you're not going to be able to individually, provide, you know, healthcare for everybody. but you can have a government say, okay, we're going to have universal health care. Now,
Yeah.
are we willing to pay for it?
And a friend and I were just talking yesterday about, I remember when plastic bags first started at Kroger's, at Crossroads, I grew up with paper bags, and I remember when plastic bags were introduced. Seferina, they've probably been your whole life, plastic bags.
Yep.
And I agree. Like, I think just putting some kind of ban on plastic is like just a great start,
Yeah,
feels doable.
right. But that's kind of a part and parcel with the conversation we're having about what is the role of government. And I kind of bring our conversation here to a close for now. It is quite gratifying just to see a governmental organization like the Department of Environmental Quality by the state of Virginia willing to say, okay, we're going to intervene here because something is amiss, and we want to at least we're going to need some more information, and that pause was done because of your organization, Protect Our Water, Heritage, and Rights. So, congrats.
Can I just say that with sending our environmental justice study to DEQ then wrote a letter to MVP and was like, hey, we noticed you only, had a meeting with people who lived a half mile. Like, maybe you should do a mile like this study shows that they did. So, I mean, I think we've made DEQ request some more information from MVP. And that wouldn't have happened if we wouldn't have had the study, if we wouldn't have had some good advice to mail that study to DEQ.
And it wouldn't have happened without y'all and POWHR. So kudos.
We're proud of us. I'm so proud of us.
Well, I am too. So thank y'all so much. Many thanks again to Crystal Mello and Seferina Olivo for sharing the environmental justice mission of POWHR, Protect Our Water, Heritage, and Rights. Now, to close out today's show, as I mentioned at the start, we recently began production on 5 new episodes of my TV show Buzz this past week. And one of them is the nonprofit She Leads Tomorrow, which provides online education and college access for women in Afghanistan who are barred from the country's educational system. It is supported by the Virginia Tech Center for Refugee, Migrant, and Displacement Studies, which is led by Dr. Brett Shadle. And here, Brett shared with me his inspiration for working with this amazing organization.
One of the things that we emphasize at our center is engaging students in outreach projects, whether it's working with English language learners in the schools, whether it's working with college students applying for college internationally. And we're very interested and dedicated to promoting education in a variety of ways, whatever that is, learning a second language, going to college, succeeding in K through 12. And so when we heard about this goal of helping women get into university, but also just being more comfortable in another language, gaining some level of education, mentorship, that really appealed to that as one of our missions here at the center. But we also really emphasize working with organizations that are led by people with the lived experience of displacement. So when we knew that it was being organized and led by people like Sohaila, that really spoke to us because we believe that it's the people who have lived through these situations are the best ones to lead these organizations. One of the things that I find very inspiring, the rest of us at our center and the students, is that it's people like Sohaila, Marwa, others who themselves are trying to create new lives in very difficult situations, and yet they're willing to dedicate their time and their energy to helping others. I think no one would blame anyone for themselves getting out of a difficult situation and just focusing on themselves. But instead, they're giving a lot of time, a lot of energy to help other people who are still in a difficult situation. And that's really inspiring. It's inspiring what the women in Afghanistan are willing to do and the struggles they're willing to go through in order to seek out this education to further their dreams.
that'll do it for today's Buzz for Good. Again, please stay connected with us through our website, buzzforgood.com, and social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and TikTok. I hope you continue being a buzz for good in the community you hold dear and supporting the nonprofits that are working tirelessly each and every day to make your community an even better place to live. Bye now.